All right, so last month for Pet Peeve, I thought about presenting. There was an oncology nurse who taught me all I really needed to know about being a cancer doctor, which is what I do for my day job, which I'm not quitting. Who had a pin that said, yes, I'm an oncology nurse, no, it's not depressing. And she wore that every day. It was from the Oncology Nursing Society. And so when I was thinking about what I could tell for courage, like, there's no problem with me finding a story with courage, because what I do every day. So it was a matter of finding a story that I could tell with protected health information, still protected. And that was a really, 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 really good one because of what we do every day. So I had to think back to when I was in my formative years. And so at the end of our fellowship, that's like the very end of our oncology training, we do a month that's kind of like training wheels, and it's called cleverly the Stello month. So you're a staff, kind of, but you're still a fellow. And so I had somebody kind of shadowing me from behind, but I was supposed to be in charge of the team. And in order to make this more realistic, I was training in the Air Force, and so they moved you to the Army hospital where you don't really know anybody, so they don't really know, they know who you are, but they haven't seen you in another role before. And I got a team of Army physicians that I was the leader of that I didn't know very well, and I had to lead them. So the beginning of the week went pretty well, but as Friday afternoons tend to do, we had a late Friday afternoon transfer from one of the outside Army bases. And it sounded simple enough on the surface. Luckily, it was coming in at a time that I thought was reasonable for me in my new role to say, yeah, I can stay until this person arrives. Ambulance is arriving. It was a young woman with breast cancer who was being transferred in the way the military did to a base that had the facilities that she needed to get treated for a new brain metastasis. And simple enough, she was going to stay with us for 2 weeks, get her treatment, and then she'd get transferred back to her base. So the way that I remember the story, I think, is probably not actually the way that it happened, but it is as true as I remember it. I had this memory of being in the ambulance bay as the woman came out of the ambulance, and simultaneously, back when we actually had films, none of my people that are here tonight will probably remember that, but we actually used to hold films in our hands, and I put the film up on the light board to look at the lesion that we were supposed to treat as this woman who was unconscious, and I've been doing this long enough to realize in the early stages of dying, comes off the ambulance. And I look at the light board, and there's a teeny, tiny single brain metastasis that is clearly not the reason that this woman is dying. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a catastrophe. Now, what we do, I think, is not depressing. It's not that it's not sad, and there's lots of sadness in what I do, but patients dying, we kind of expect. Patients dying when their families aren't expecting it, when their families aren't with it, after a brutal and completely futile round of CPR because no one's had a discussion with her, because no one on our side knew what was happening. That's depressing, and that's catastrophe in the oncology world. And I'm looking at her, I'm looking at the film, and my Army resident comes up behind me and says, oh my God, there's nothing we can do. Like, that's helpful. That's not even helpful. I'm sure he went on to become a wonderful cardiologist, but he's not an oncologist. And I'm just about to hit panic mode, this young woman, which at the time meant slightly older than me, now significantly younger than me, comes around the corner, and she was a lovely, bountiful, red-headed woman in, I swear to God, jeans and a girl power t-shirt, and introduced herself as Lola. And what I had forgotten, and I knew at that point, having been in the military for 6 years, which those of you that haven't been in the military might not know, like, I went into the military for love. My husband is here, for love. And I pictured it as like being familyless and lonely and wandering around the country without any family. But those of you that have been in the military realize that, like, page 2 of the military family handbook is unpack your boxes, find your family. Because nobody has any family, so everybody's your family. So this woman's family had been her impromptu breast cancer support group. And Lola and several of the other women had attended the appointment that led to the transfer. And Lola, without even a thought, without even a toothbrush, had gotten in the ambulance with this woman to come here, realizing that somebody was going to be needed because her husband was in the field, not knowing that her children, the patient's children, were going to be taken care of. And she's like, I'm Lola, I'm here, what do you need me to do? And so I turned to my resident and I'm like, and so we talked through the medical sides of what there was clearly to do to make this woman more comfortable. Well, Lola got her team together. They found the husband in the field. We had the conversation. The next morning, we come in. Lola is still in the room. The young woman, who was a lovely, very dark-skinned black woman, was lying in her bed, and I still remember this. Like, her skin is glowing, her breathing is calm, she has she's still, unfortunately, not conscious, but she's got a sliver of a smile on her face. She is very modestly covered with white towels, because Lola and the military nurses have just given her a sponge bath. She's playing beautiful music in the background. We walk in, and Lola tells us what's going to happen for the day, which is that the family is on the way. Lola, as soon as we get the hell out of her way, is going to give her a massage, and we backed out of the room. And my lesson to my team that day was, there's always something to do, and it wasn't my lesson, it was Lola's. When I have more time and more wise, I aspire someday to write my memoirs on the contrast of light and dark that I see every day in oncology. I have not a word of it written, but the title will be Ode to Lola in a Girl Power t-shirt.